Hello students, welcome to Infinity Learning Space and welcome to one of the most interesting topics or one of the most interesting subjects that you will ever learn in your CA student journey, and that is none other than CL-25-3 Risk, Governance and Audit. So students, before I tell you about how this is an interesting topic and interesting subject, let me introduce myself as well as Infinity to all of you. So I am Bhagya Fernando and I am a chartered accountant. And if I tell you a bit about my background, so I'm actually coming from one of the biggest we say big four audit firms that is available in Sri Lanka. That's where I started my career in auditing basically. So that is through covering the external audit aspect in the auditing subject, right? And then basically I switched my career to cover one of the most interesting topics that you could also see in this particular subject, my dear students, and that is about the risk management as well as internal auditing. And now I work at basically at the corporate sector, mercantile sector, whatever you call it, by supporting board of directors of my own organization as well as the audit committee of the organization with risk management, internal controls, maybe sustainability, likewise many interesting subjective areas. So today, with the introduction of this particular course, my dear students, I am bringing all of my knowledge as well as all of the theoretical aspects that is available in your CA-Sri Lanka curriculum into your classroom. So that's where we basically begin. And then if we spoke about the Infinity Learning Space, I'm pretty sure this is not the first time that you are encountering with Infinity Learning Space. You know that Infinity is a pioneer, right, in educating for chartered accountancy as well as for ACCA examinations, especially with a pioneering lecture panel, right? Not only me, there's a lot of chartered accountants as well as other professionals who will help you in achieving your CA dream. So with Infinity, you have numerous benefits. For an example, you don't need to pay your entire course fee at once. There are flexible plans that we have introduced as Infinity Learning Space. And on the other hand, if you are using a dialogue connection, you know that already the data is almost free when you are accessing our videos through the LMS. So that is the level of support that Infinity is actually bringing to your home, right, wherever you are, so you can join with Infinity and right be a successful chartered accountant in your career. So that being said, let us officially right step into our subject, and that is risk, governance as well as audit. So students, before we right step into the subject officially, you have to understand as a student where you stood right now, where you stand right now. So you are in none other than at the corporate level, right? Now you have completed the business level. This is the CA-Sri-Lanka new curriculum 2025. So in this curriculum, you have already completed the entire business level. So you can put a tick for the business level basically. And then, especially, you know that there are 4 pillars, 4 subjects for each level, and then altogether there are only 12 subjects plus 3 capstones, right? So you are joining with me today actually in this to educate yourself in the risk control and assurance pillar. So this is one of the most interesting subjects or subjective pillars that you will learn in your CA journey. Why? By being a chartered accountant, my dear students, you are not only capable of handling the financial statements of a business organization, be it your client company, be it your own organization, you have the capability to manage their financial statements properly by engaging with the first pillar, right? By engaging with the second pillar, you will become a professional management accountant with all of the risk management, financial management, as well as strategic management aspect of the of the CA-Sri-Lanka curriculum. And even if we take the final pillar here, before we officially coming into our own pillar, the business environment, law and taxation pillar, you are working in a profession where many of the regulations, including laws, right? And then there are some like Parliament Acts, and likewise there are many regulations that will impact to the profession that you are working on. So you have to have that understanding of the laws as well as the taxation, right? However, if we take the first pillar, second pillar, as well as the final pillar, are these enough for you to become a good chartered accountant? Absolutely not, right? Because students, in order for you to manage a business organization, in order to advise a business organization in enhancing their profitability, in enhancing their governance structure, you have to have an understanding of the risks that those business organizations are facing, how we can eliminate or how we can reduce those risks. In order to eliminate the risk, how we can bring controls into a business organization, or at least for a business organizational processes, right? And on top of that, we are now in a world where we talk mostly about some of the digital initiatives like AI, machine learning, and all of those things. And on top of that, there is a huge discussion that is going on regarding what sustainability. We have to be sustainable when doing the financial reporting, when doing the management accounting, when doing taxation and laws, whatever it is. We have to be sustainable as business organizations, right? So where will you learn that particular subjective knowledge, theoretical knowledge, my dear students? It is none other than in this pillar of risk control and assurance pillar. And even in that pillar, my dear students, you have passed one hurdle, right? You are now completed the processes, audit and assurance subject of the business level. And now you are stepping into the second level, the corporate level. Under that, you will learn risk, governance and audit subject. My dear students, please remember this at the very beginning of our journey with your journey with me. Basically, this is the heart of auditing that we are going to discuss, right? Don't forget, in business level, dear students, you have already learned about what an audit is, right? And then what business processes are, right? And on top of that, you have now learned what a business risk is, what an internal control is, what internal auditing is, and what external auditing is. So likewise, you have covered some to some level, right? These processes, audit, as well as what assurance basically is, right? But for me, my dear students, this is like the skin of the auditing, right? You have just touched the surface of what we are going to discuss, right? And from the corporate level, dear students, as I said, we are going to touch the heart of auditing. So this is where you officially step into the world of auditing as well as risk management, my dear students, especially with the involvement of auditing standards as well, right? Now in business level, you didn't learn about any of the auditing standards. You just learned what an audit is. මේ audit එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? External audit, internal audit වලින් වෙනස් වෙන්නේ මොනවාද? Right? And then maybe the auditing process from start to end, you have touched upon that one. But you haven't deep dive into the subject in a way that you will gain a higher understanding of what actually an audit is, right? So this is why, dear students, I told you that this is one of the most interesting topics that you will ever learn in your CA journey. But you might ask me, what about the strategic level auditing, right? Remember, dear students, you have maybe two subjects out of one which you have to select. You have advanced auditing and professional practice, as well as advanced risk management, as well as corporate governance. In that level, dear students, you will no longer, or you will not learn again about the auditing standards, right? And then maybe the ethical standards that you have to follow as a chartered accountant. This is the level in which you will learn that one. And in final level, what you will just do is just master those what you have learned in the corporate level. So remember, my dear students, very important, this corporate level is very important. Corporate level auditing subject is of utmost important in your CA journey. So don't lose your notes or the things that you have learned at the corporate level, because they will most definitely be useful for you in your final hurdle of chartered accountancy, right? So with that being said, students, and before we try to officially go into our subject, I thought of doing a kind of a recap, like you see in a kind of a TV series that you watch. Maybe when you come to the second season of the TV show, you just kind of glance through a recap of the first season of the TV show that you watched, right? You might not remember what you saw in the first season, right? So before we move into the second season, my dear students, that is the corporate level, I thought of just glancing through. I'm not going to deeply discuss any of these topics, but just glance through what we have or what you might have learned at the previous level, maybe in the chartered accountancy, or maybe at the AAT examinations as well. So wherever it is, you might have started this with the business processes. This is the key, my dear students. The business processes are very important, not just for auditing, but also for the risk management aspect. Unless you have a deeper understanding of what business processes are, like the payment process, sales process, right? There were many processes that we discussed. You have to have a deeper understanding of business processes for you to introduce internal controls, right? And also to identify the risks that there are available in a business organization, and also to conduct an audit. Because ultimately what we will be auditing is the processes that a particular business organization has. And after that, we discussed what a business risk is and what controls are available for to be applied for business process in an organization. So in there, from the definition of risk, we started everything, and then we identify some of the types of risks, as well as what are the controls that we can build in to these business processes in order to overcome these risks. මුලින් business processes ගැන කතා කරලා ඊට පස්සේ ව්‍යාපාරයකට තියෙන අවදානම් ඒ අවදානම් නැති කරන්න අපිට ගේන්න පුළුවන් පාලනයන් controls මොනවද කියන එක තමයි අපි initially discuss කරේ. So that was our initial discussions. And then obviously we introduced ERM, right? A very interesting topic. Even we will also discuss enterprise risk management within the corporate level as well. So you might be a student who has completed maybe business level, or in a previous syllabus maybe executive level, likewise sometimes a long back, right? But don't forget, we will anyway start fresh and then teach you from A to Z the entire auditing, as well as the risk management, as well as the governance processes that you need to know. And then this is where we stepped into the world of auditing. This may be the topic that you initially thought about auditing, right? මේක තමයි start එක වගේ auditing journey එකේ. And then as another part of auditing, we talked about internal auditing as well, right? So this may not be the first time that you hear some of these words, but anyway, doesn't matter what you learn at the business level. We are here to start afresh and then go on a journey where you become a very professional as well as a very knowledgeable chartered accountant. Right. So with that, my dear students, we can officially now come into talk about the risk governance as well as auditing aspect. So read aloud with me, my dear students. This is one of the things that I practice in my videos where I ask you to read along with me, right? The risk, control and assurance pillar develops a progressive understanding of risk management, assurance and corporate governance. It covers business processes, risk, business process risk, internal control, audit planning, audit execution, audit reporting, while ensuring compliance with regulatory, ethical as well as governance standards. So this is about the entire pillar which I already discussed with you students. So there we cover a huge scope, not just auditing, not just governance, not just risk management, but it's a holistic picture that we are covering, and especially some of the standards related to sustainability, ethics as well. So that is very important. Emphasizing strategic decision making, financial risk management, and ethical leadership, this pillar equips future professionals, that is you, with the skills to navigate complex regulatory environment, uphold governance standards, right? Complex regulatory environments, uphold governance standards, and ensure business resilience. So this is why the understanding of this particular subject is really important, dear student, right? Because you have to have an understanding of how you have to behave in a very complex regulatory environment, right? I told you at the very beginning, this is a profession where many of the rules and regulations are applying, right? And then the governance of a business organization, whenever the governance structure of a business falls down, the business falls down, right? But governance කියන එක හොඳට තිබුණොත් තමයි business එක, right, it will grow basically, right? So you have to have theoretical as well as the practical understanding of ensuring that the business organizations have the correct governance standards, right? How should their board of directors should be comprised of, whether they should have audit committee, whether they should have a risk committee, right? So likewise, we will be covering the entire governance of business organization and also business resilience, especially during some higher, right, in times where many of the risks are coming towards business organization, especially in the era of how we are operating right now. There may be wars, right? There may be natural disasters that are available. There may be some viruses that are spreading across the entire world that we are living in. So in that kind of a context, how do we navigate, right, business organizations to be resilient? මේ වැටෙන්නේ නැති වෙන්න business organizations අපි ඉස්සරහට අරගෙන යන්නේ කොහොමද? This is not going to be taught at your financial reporting or management accounting or in your low tax subject students. This is where you gain that understanding, right? So at the corporate level, right, this is where you are now. Auditing principles focusing on audit planning, execution as well as reporting while ensuring compliance with governance and ethical standard. It explores regulatory frameworks, risk management, sustainability, digital tools, especially these are really important. So this will be our discussion. And finally, students should develop a comprehensive approach to auditing, aligning with global standards and digital trends in evolving business environment. Especially as I told you students, this is where you will be exposed to many of the auditing standards, sustainability related standards, ethical, right, ethical environment related standards, corporate governance related standards, right? Likewise, there will be many more and I will be discussing them in a bit, right? And then I thought of showing this to you as well. This is what your chartered Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka says, right? Gone are the days when CEs were seen merely as financial experts. Today, the profession demands multifaceted leaders who are strategic business visionaries, technology pioneers, and ethical storytellers adept at navigating and shaping complex business landscape. දැන් මේ තවදුරටත් ළමයි මේ ලෝකේ chartered accountants ලගෙන් මේ financial expert කියන role එක විතරක් නෙමෙයි expect කරන්නේ. We don't just expect that, but we expect the future professionals to become strategic business visionaries, right? They have to ensure that businesses are thriving, right? Technology pioneers, you have to bring new technologies into your own business organization. So likewise, this is what the future looks like, right? And me as well as Infinity is here to help you achieve that dream. And on top of that, the Sri Lanka actually wants you to become a trustworthy, right, person, right, or a professional with the technical acumen, and also they want us to be future ready strategic imperatives. You have to bring digital transformations into your business organization, right? As I said here, to become a strategic business partner, right? You have to navigate the complexities of the contemporary business environment, right? These risks that we are facing at the moment, and then apply what you learn for the modern business. So these are not just theories I'm talking to you and teaching to you, my dear students. All of these will be applicable to your own business organizations, to whatever the business organization that you deal with. And then you have to become a good storyteller, right, in transforming business organizations as well, especially who have a holistic view on the entire business organization. Right. So this one, my dear students, this is all about your syllabus. Especially, this might be the most important part for you in this introductory video to our course officially. So in our syllabus, dear students, we have 6 things to discuss, right? These 6 things are really important. So remember this, I thought of like bringing this to you as a kind of a tree where you and I will grow together in this particular journey by covering each of the 6 aspects. So what are these 6 aspects, dear students? The first one is compliance with regulations, governance and ethics, where 15%, approximately 15% of your syllabus will rely on. So we actually start with this aspect where you have to have an understanding of the regulatory framework applicable for auditors, right? Chartered accountants. Corporate governance, this is where we start again what corporate governance is. Code of ethics as well as some aspects of sustainability as well. Upon completion of that one, we can officially step into auditing with what? Audit planning. Right? Very important, my dear students. 25% of your syllabus will be from this particular section. So there, we actually talk about the risk of material misstatement, how we can gather evidence as an auditor, and obviously how we can use data analytics to improve our audit planning pace, right? So this is where we start the auditing with. And then after you have completed the audit planning, you can go directly into the audit execution as well as very important substantive procedures. Some of you might have heard about this term before, the substantive procedures. These are simply what you will actually do in an audit. After conducting the audit planning and identifying the areas that you need to audit, you have to have certain processes, certain procedures that you will follow in order to test a particular set of financial statements, which comprises of classes of transactions as well as account balances that are available in your income statements as well as in the statement of financial position. It's that simple. So these two will be somewhat lengthy discussions, right? Because almost, as you can see, 50% of your syllabus will be from these two sections. And then we learn about the audit reporting. Now that the audit execution is done, what we have to then do is we just report our audit findings and then especially give our audit opinion, right? Audit report, audit completion stage, how we can communicate this to the right respective personnel, right? And then we talk some of the things and aspects relating to quality management in auditing as well. So this has approximately 15% weightage. And then what we discuss is risk management, right? Now the subject itself is risk, governance and audit. So we discuss about governance and audit, and this is where we talk about risks, right? So we start from the beginning and then identify the risk management process, some aspects relating to sustainability, ESG, especially these are very important topics, and obviously how we can do digital transformation in risk. And then finally, students, another 10%, the final 10% of your syllabus will come from internal audit. Do you remember the business level syllabus? We ended our business level syllabus with internal auditing aspect. So very similarly at the corporate level also you will learn about the internal audit process. And we take another step and talk about some data analytics as well as forensic audits as well, right? So don't be confused with some of these technical terms. We are still in our introductory video, and from the videos that are to become, right, under your course, you will learn almost all of these theoretical areas, right? And then obviously the examination structure. I know that you absolutely know about your right examination structure at the corporate level, but it's still my responsibility for you to show you a right kind of a glance through the examination structure. So you have section A as well as section B, where in the section A you have mandatory 5 questions that contains 10 marks each, and on the second section B, you have 3 questions out of which you have to select any 2. So for this section it will be 50 marks, for this section 25 into 2 also 50 marks. So now you know what's going to happen. So altogether you have 3 hours to sit for your final hurdle, and then obviously 15 minutes to reading. So basically what my recommendation for you at the very beginning is calculate 1.5 minutes, right? Take 1.5 minutes for every mark that you have. If it is a 10 mark questions, take 15 minutes approximately, because otherwise some of the students, some of the mistakes that are continuously doing by most of the students are actually they take a very long time to provide an answer to maybe for a question with 2 marks, maybe 5 marks. They write an entire whole page of an answer. So you don't need to do like that. When we are officially coming into the theoretical aspects and when we discuss about some of the papers, we discuss past papers, we discuss my own model papers for you, and then through those discussions we'll see how you can optimize your time and then pass your examination in the very first attempt. That's my goal. So these are some of the examination questions. So this will be your examination paper. So why I have put this here is, students, this is where you will have a very different examination paper to your business level. In the business level, you might have had only the MCQs. So this is where it gets changed drastically. For every question that you face in this particular paper, students, you will have a huge case like this. Even though I said huge, it's a very small scenario that you have been given. You have to read this particular case and you have to apply your theoretical knowledge for this particular business organization, this particular case, and answer these 2 questions. right? So this is a 10-mark question, basically carrying two questions, one with 4 mark and one with 6 marks. So there can be many variations of these questions. It may be 1 mark as well as 9 marks as well. The examiner can test you in many ways. So at the initial phase, students, what you have to just understand is this will be the structure. So you have to, right? You have to understand how to read these case studies, how you can understand that particular context, and how you have to apply your theory knowledge in order to answer these two questions. Otherwise, what most of the students will do is they try to generalize the answers, right? When they are reading the particular question, there might be thousands of thoughts that will coming into their head, but they are very reluctant to apply the same theoretical knowledge that they have gained for this particular case study, right? And obviously, regarding the theoretical aspects also, dear students, you can't generalize anything. You have to be very specific to this particular case and write specific answers. Then only you will save time and score the highest mark for the questions, right? So keep that in mind. And also, students, we are coming to another kind of interesting area, right? Where you might already know that this is a kind of an open book examination, right? Maybe one of your friends have told you that this is an open book examination, or maybe in some kinds of material that published by CASriLanka contains that this is a open book examination. So what is actually meant by an open book examination? Usually, dear students, when we say an open book examination, you can bring any kinds of materials to the examination, and you can obviously use those materials in order to answer the questions, right? But here in the chartered accountancy, when we tell that there is a kind of an open book examination, there is a list of applicable or approved open book materials. So you can only bring them into the examination. In business level, you didn't have this facility, right? I will tell you what the open books are, dear students, but what you have to understand, right? This is very important, where I won't teach you in a way that you have to rely on these open books materials. And also my instruction to you, right, as well, right, my instruction to you is try not to depend on these open books materials, because at the examination you will not have time to turn all the pages in this open book material and write the answers, right? Remember this at the very beginning. You will not have the time. Sometimes you can here and there, right, check some of the things that you might have forgotten, right, quickly from that particular relevant book, and then maybe write. But you can't say that I'm not going to study, this is a kind of an open book examination, so I can write anything by looking at the open books at the examination. Don't do that, right? කවදාවත් ඒ approach එකට පුරුදු වෙන්න එපා. Even I won't teach you in a way that you have to keep all of these books with you, right? So initially, this is really important, students. Sri Lanka Auditing Standards 2024 Volume 1 as well as Volume 2. By the time you watch these videos, students, remember there might be some amendments that may have been, right, happen to these particular standards that we are talking about, because these things continuously gets changed, right? Now, even though some of the, right, for an example, the next one is Code of Best Practice on Corporate Governance, right? And that is published on 2023, right? By the time you watch our course or watch these videos, these things may have been changed or updated, right? So remember that. And also there is a kind of open book referential, especially indicating or like having Sri Lanka statement of recommended practice for especially IFRICs and SICs. I'm not going to discuss about these things. We'll discuss them later. Especially these two are very important. This is where all of your auditing standards are included, right? I will show you them when we start discussing about these aspects. And obviously, students, this is the main material or main standard which will govern the corporate governance aspect of our profession, that is the code of best practice on corporate governance. It's a kind of a guideline that provided to the professional where indicating some of the best practices that professionals can follow. And obviously, there is another one available for small and medium enterprises, right? Now, this is for big corporations, right? This one is for big corporation and the other one is for small and medium entities, right? And finally, very important, you have to be an ethical chartered accountant, and for that, there is a code of ethics that is published in 2025. You have to follow it as a auditor as well as a chartered accountant. So you might have to remember all of these materials as well, because you are allowed to take these materials into the examination. And obviously, I have put a link here where if you want the soft copies or the digital versions of any of these materials, you can go to this link, which is our CASriLanka website, and then download those materials. If you want to purchase anything, physical copies, you can take them from the CASriLanka office, right? And then finally, my dear students, we have officially come into the end of our introductory video. So before ending, I just wanted to give you some tips for your success. Especially right now, you as my students, I want all of you to succeed at the very first attempt. And obviously, you have to follow these rules. The first one, you have to organize all of your materials. Materials in the sense, students, on one hand, you have your open books, right? Open book materials that I just discussed. And on the other hand, I will guide you through this entire journey with all of the PowerPoint slides only. Other than that, there will be nothing, right? There will be nothing. All of my theoretical knowledge I am giving to you using these PowerPoint slides. So if you want to keep them digitally, you can keep it, right? Doesn't matter. And what my suggestion for you is take a printout, because in most of my PowerPoint presentations, you have some blanks where you have to fill them and maybe write some of your own notes, some of your own examples, right? So for that one, it's better if you have a printed version of the slides. And if you want to keep digitally, there is a tool. You might have sometimes heard about this software, which is published by Google, right? We call it as Notebook LM, where you can organize all of your PDFs, maybe PowerPoint presentations, all of your study packs. Likewise, all of the things are, right? You can keep them in the Notebook LM, and then maybe have your own notes, as well as there are some AI assistant tools as well. So make sure to explore those kinds of tools. No need of study packs. Obviously, students, this I have to stress out, because most of the students actually think that they have to follow the study packs as well, in addition to the theory lecture videos that they are following. In my case, it's not, right? Most of my corporate level students, as well as most of my business level students, actually know that I don't rely on the study packs that you were given to. It's only these materials that I will be giving to you will be enough. Then you have to study them. That's it. Also, you don't need to depend on the open book materials, like I said. And then, students, very important, you have to gather knowledge on industries as well as current affairs. What is going on in the world right now, right? Let's say you are facing the examination on 2026 December, right? Maybe in another time period. So you have to have an understanding of what went wrong, right? In that particular period, you might have encountered a war, right? You might have encountered a virus that spread across the entire world. So with all of those things that will happen, there is a greater chance that your examiner will bring a similar case, right, for your examination paper and test your knowledge based on that understanding. So for that one, you have to have the knowledge on the current affairs, right? And obviously, the theoretical knowledge is not enough. You have to have an understanding of real world examples. Also very important, which I will be giving you with all my experience. And finally, do as many examination questions as you can, because why? Practice is really important. Don't think that this is going to be an easy paper. No, it's not going to be an easy paper. And then you have to practice as much as you can. We will definitely cover most of the past papers, as much as many past papers as we can, and then I will give you some model papers as well. What you have to do is basically understand the theoretical concept and practice as much as you can by doing all of these past papers, right? So with that, students, we come to the end of our introductory session. I hope actually you got a understanding regarding the current state that you are studying in, as well as regarding this particular subject. So I'm hoping to see all of you in our theory videos, as well as in the live sessions where we discuss most of the past papers and conduct many of the model paper questions, and likewise many things are to be come. So with that, I wish you all the very best for your studies as well as for your examination. So I'll be seeing you. Thank you very much for joining.